Well, all right, guys, we got a gigantic blank here, and it is aching to be turned. So let's make a bowl. Well, all right, so this is the big blank that I made during the live demo day that Easywood Tools and Carl Jacobson put on, and I'm really excited to turn this. This is by far the biggest blank I've ever turned. Now, it's not actually the most resin I've poured. In the bottom of this, if you didn't see me making this blank, there's a pretty big chunk of wood that Doug over at Pole Barn Productions sent me, and I feel kind of bad. He sent this thing to me. It was a nice big chunk of boxelder burl. He sent it like 2 years ago, and it sat on the shelf, and I just kind of looked at it, and I was waiting for the right thing to pop into my head of what I wanted to do with it. And this came up, and I thought, okay, let's just pour a giant blank with this thing. And so that's what we're gonna do. So let's get this thing mounted on the lathe, and let's start making some shavings. All right, so it looks like we got a crack in here, and I don't know what would have caused that. I don't think it's overheating, but we'll have to kind of wait and see what's in the main part of the blank up here. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put some super fast thin Starbond in there, let it kind of soak in, let it cure up, maybe a couple of douses of that, and then we'll start working on the bowl shape. Alright, so I'm pretty happy with the shape so far. I might do a little bit more refining, but at this point I think it's ready to be flipped and cored out. Now, a couple of little quick notes. So we still have that crack. I couldn't get rid of it completely, so at this point, I don't know, I might fill it with a little bit of CA glue before I go home, let it kind of cure. The other thing that I found is there's a little bit of a kind of a crack along this edge. I already filled it once, and it's not too bad, but I think I'm going to give it one more squirt of the thin CA. But I think for the most part, it's looking like I kind of had it pictured. So at this point, I think, like I said, just a couple little refinements, then it's time to start coring it out. It took me a little while to figure out what I wanted to do for a finish on this piece, but the one thing I knew I wasn't going to do was wet sand. This wood was, although I added, cactus juice to it that was dyed, it isn't really fully stabilized, so it would have absorbed a good amount of moisture. I didn't really want that. So in this case, there was two options I was going to go for. I was either going to go for a lacquer finish, which means I would have just sanded up to about 400 or 600 grit, then sprayed it. Or I was going to go for just kind of a polishing method without putting any kind of a top coat or a film finish over the wood. And once I got everything kind of sanded up, I really liked the feel of the raw wood, and I didn't really want to put a film over it. So I decided the polishing was a good way to go. And in this case, Yorkshire Grit is actually a really good way to go if you want to avoid wet sanding. It basically takes the place of 2 or 3, maybe 4 grits of wet sanding that I would normally do. And it just uses oils and kind of waxes. So it was kind of the perfect option. I decided to go for it and see how it went. Alright guys, I just wanted to stop and give a real quick shout out to my 2 newest top level patrons over on Patreon, Scott Tague and Jacob Jansen. Thank you guys for supporting the show at the top level. I really appreciate it. And if you'd like to help support the show over on Patreon, you can do so at patreon.com/nvwoodworks. Now let's get back on this bowl. Well, unfortunately, I found more. I'm guessing this is part of that same crack that I already filled on the outside. It's in the middle here too, so I kind of uncovered it, let's say. I don't know what caused this. I mean, it's not because it was too much resin. You know, it's in this kind of crevice. This piece of wood had like a cavern in it, a gouge. And I'm guessing there was just some junk in there. I couldn't really get in there and clean it out. There was something in there that caused this, you know, I don't know, maybe a little bit of moisture or something. I'm not sure. But something that reacted a little bit. So I'm just going to fill it with a little bit of CA glue, try and kind of do that again, you know, repair it. And then just a little bit, we're almost to the end. That's what's kind of disappointing when something like this happens right at the end. I just want to refine this kind of curve here. And then I'm going to work on the rim and we're done. So let's get on it. Okay, we got it all finished up, and man, I mean, look at this thing. Pretty awesome. I'm really happy with this thing. It turned out so cool. The colors, I mean, good lord, they're so vibrant. This pink, this is cactus juice pink, and I think the boxelder really, it just took that color really well. So really fun project to turn. Big thank you to Doug for sending the wood in. Sorry it took so long for me to actually get on this and do something with it, but I was waiting for the right project, and I'm glad I waited now because I really enjoyed making this. And thank you for the inspiration on the pedestal bowl thing. I've never done anything like this, and it's a really neat shape, and it utilized that whole blank. You know, if you're making a bucket pour, you've got quite a bit of wood and resin to deal with. There was a lot of things going on with this, and I didn't know exactly what to do. Now, the one thing you could do is just kind of bucket shape it, make it kind of more of a pot. But I didn't really want to do that. I saw the pedestal thing, and I thought this would be a pretty cool looking project. All right, so for a couple of notes about the project, there was a couple of new things and things that were kind of experiments on this one. And so I tried an oil-based varnish kind of sanding sealer step and kind of compared that to the Mylands. I don't really have a lot of experience with turning projects with either of those. I have used an oil, like an oil varnish blend kind of mix on a lot of woodworking projects before I got into turning that was, oil based. So I had a lot of experience doing it with different projects. But at this point, I don't really see the value in an oil based sanding sealer step. You got to wait overnight for it to kind of cure up and then move on and then sand, and it's just so much easier with the Mylands. That's probably why you don't really see many people using an oil-based thing for a sanding sealer step. The only thing that I would say it might be useful for is if you were turning, let's say, like a not stabilized. You didn't stabilize it. It was just, a raw piece of wood that was like maybe maple burl. In that case, the oil-based product might impart a little bit more of that amber tone to the wood. I don't know, probably more than just a Myland sanding sealer would do. I'm not even entirely sure though. But that would be the only advantage I can think of. And frankly, I would rather stabilize that piece of burl, if possible. Maybe it's too big, but as long as you could stabilize it, I would do it that way. And cactus juice imparts a little bit of amber tone anyway to wood, so I don't really see the value in most of the things that I would ever do. I would rather go with the thing that's a lot faster. Now, the other thing that I used was an Inertia sander. That was the first time I ever used one of those, and I gotta say, I was pretty happy with it. Actually, Eddie recommended that I try one out, and I knew about them for a while. I've seen lots of other people use them. I always kind of felt like they were a little gimmicky. I don't know, maybe gimmicky, maybe the other reason I stayed away is because then you're kind of stuck having to buy disc sandpaper or cut out, little discs out of your Abernet. So I don't know. I was kind of just like, I can just hand sand. But the thing is, on a bigger project, your fingers get so fatigued if you're just holding onto a piece of sandpaper the way I usually sand. And so it was a lot more comfortable just kind of holding onto a handle. It worked. It was pretty easy to use. It seemed to work really well. So overall, pretty happy with it. I didn't use it on the outside because I didn't actually have it in hand. It was being shipped to me. I bought it from Woodturner's Wonders. So I'll put a link to where I got it if you want to check it out. I have no clue if it's better or worse quality than any of the other ones. There's lots of them out there. It seemed pretty good. It can articulate. You can kind of lock it into different positions. It has a little magnetic thing to hold the little pad. So it worked pretty easy. Now, if you are somebody that gets that finger fatigue and don't really want to mess with an inertia sander, I would actually recommend maybe just getting one of those little 2-inch pads. You're still stuck with the disc sandpaper thing, but tell you what, it's a lot easier to hold onto that thing than try and hold a little piece of thin sandpaper. That's actually what really fatigues my fingers when I'm sanding. It's trying to keep a hold of that little piece of paper and then move it. Holding onto that little pad thing was a lot easier. There's a few different ways you could do that. You don't need to buy one of those round pads even, but I would recommend, especially if you do a lot of sanding, especially on larger projects, I think it's worth looking into if you get that kind of finger fatigue when you're sanding. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching this thing come together. I had a blast making it. Big thank you to Doug for supplying the wood. It really turned out pretty awesome, I think. And I love that mitten. I think it might be the wrong hand for the mitten, but kind of looks like a mitten in there. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this yet. So if people might ask, is it for sale? I don't really know yet. I'm on the fence about a couple different things. There's a couple different ways I could go. I could sell it. I could give it away as a gift to somebody. Or another thought that has crossed my mind. I'm creeping up on 50,000 subscribers on my channel, which is huge. That's massive. And so I'm probably going to be doing giveaways, and it might be a giveaway item in that. I don't know yet. We'll have to see. Keep your eyes peeled, and I'll let you guys know when I finally decide what I am going to do with this thing. So if you're new to the channel, we do all kinds of resin casting projects, tips and tricks, and experiments around here. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, usually turning focused like this, definitely hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you get notified when new videos get posted. And if you're thinking about getting into resin casting, but you're not really sure where to begin, check out my ebook, The Beginner's Guide to Resin Casting. It answers all those beginner questions like, what do I need to get started? How does it all work? It kind of gets you over that initial learning curve so you can get in the shop and start making some really fun resin casting projects of your own. It's available on my website if you're interested. So until next time, guys, thanks for watching this video, and happy casting.